Hello everyone. I hope you enjoy listening to the story. I, Olivia Carter, 32 years old. They told me to stay home and babysit my disabled sister-in-law, but the moment the door closed, she stood up and said, "Good. Now we can finally take everything back." I stood there for a full 5 seconds, my hands still frozen on the doorknob. My heart beat loud enough to drown out every rational thought. Lena had not just stood up. She had moved with precision, steady, controlled, nothing like the fragile, trembling woman I had been ordered to care for every day for the past 6 months. Her wheelchair sat behind her like a discarded prop. She rolled her shoulders once, like someone waking up from a long performance, then looked straight at me. Really looked. It was the first time I had ever seen her eyes without that distant, helpless glaze. "You can close the door," she said calmly. "They installed cameras in the living room, but not here." That was the moment something inside me cracked. Or maybe it finally aligned. Because for weeks, something had felt wrong. Too many small details that did not add up. The way Lena never met my eyes when her mother spoke for her. The way my husband avoided any conversation about medical bills. The way I had been slowly pushed out of every financial decision in my own house. I told myself I was overthinking. That this was what marriage required. Sacrifice, support, loyalty. But standing there, watching a woman who was supposed to be unable to walk take 3 confident steps toward me, I realized I had not been sacrificing. I had been managed. "What is this?" I whispered, my voice dry, almost unfamiliar to my own ears. Lena tilted her head slightly, studying me as if measuring whether I was worth the truth. Then she exhaled, slow and controlled. "It is a setup," she said. "And you are the final piece." My stomach dropped. "What do you mean?" "They are planning to transfer everything," she continued, her tone flat, almost clinical. "The house, the accounts, anything in your name. You already signed the preliminary documents. Did you not? The ones your husband called insurance adjustments." My mind flashed back to the papers, the rushed explanations, the pressure, the smile he gave me when I signed. I felt heat rise up my neck, then cold settle deep in my chest. "That is not possible," I said, but even I could hear how weak it sounded. Lena let out a quiet, humorless laugh. "It is not only possible, it is already in motion." She stepped closer, lowering her voice. "And when it is done, you will not just lose the house. You will lose your legal standing to fight for it." I stared at her, my thoughts spiraling. "Why are you telling me this?" She held my gaze, unblinking. "Because I am next." Silence filled the room, thick and suffocating. I felt it then. The shift. The moment where fear stopped being paralyzing and started becoming something sharper. Something dangerous. "If you think this is just another toxic family story," I said slowly, more to myself than to her, "then something tells me I have been wrong about everything." I did not sit down. I did not cry. I did not ask for comfort. I stood there, staring at Lena, trying to connect the woman in front of me with the one I had been spoon-feeding soup to just hours earlier. My hands were still shaking, but my mind was already racing ahead, picking apart every conversation. Every document, every strange silence that I had ignored because I trusted the wrong people. "Start from the beginning," I said, forcing my voice to stay steady. "All of it." Lena nodded once, as if she had been waiting for that exact moment. She walked past me, not bothering with the wheelchair, and pulled open a drawer in the kitchen. From the back, she took out a thin folder, worn at the edges, and slid it across the table. "I was not always like this," she said quietly. 2 years ago, I was running my own design firm. I had full control of my inheritance. Then I got into a minor accident. Nothing serious, but they saw an opportunity. I opened the folder. Medical reports. Prescriptions. Signatures that looked familiar, but not quite right. "These are fake," I said. "Not entirely," she replied. "They exaggerated everything. Paid the right doctors. Declared me unfit to manage my own finances. Temporary guardianship. That was step 1. Her eyes hardened. Step 2 was isolation. They moved me back into this house. Took over my accounts. Limited who I could see. And then they needed a caretaker. Someone trustworthy. Someone easy to control. My stomach twisted. "Me." She gave a small nod. "You were perfect. You already trusted them. You already loved him. She did not say my husband's name. She did not need to. I leaned against the counter, gripping the edge so hard my knuckles turned white. So everything, the job loss, the pressure to stay home. Engineered, she said. They needed you dependent. If you have no independent income, no separate financial identity, it becomes much easier to move assets without raising suspicion. She paused, watching my reaction carefully. You have been signing documents, have you not? I thought about the late nights. The stack of papers placed in front of me with rushed explanations. Just standard adjustments, he had said. Trust me. I let out a slow breath. I signed everything. Exactly what they wanted. Lena tapped the folder. But they made a mistake. I looked up. What mistake? They assumed I would stay quiet forever. For the first time, there was something else in her expression. Not fear. Not weakness. Something sharper. Controlled anger. I started recording everything, she continued. Every conversation. Every financial transfer. Every time they discussed their plans while thinking I was too broken to understand. She reached into her pocket and pulled out a small device. And what they are planning now, it is bigger than just taking your house. A cold weight settled in my chest. How much bigger? They are consolidating assets, she said. Yours. Mine. Anything they can access. Then they move everything under a corporate structure controlled by your husband. Once that is done legally, we become irrelevant. She met my eyes again. You lose your house. I lose my inheritance. And we both lose the ability to fight back. The room felt smaller. The air heavier. I forced myself to think, to stay present. Why now? I asked. Why tell me today? Because they are accelerating, she said. There is a final document. The one that completes the transfer. They plan to have you sign it within the next 48 hours. My pulse spiked. And if I refuse? She gave me a look that said she had already considered that scenario. They will not give you the option. They will pressure you, manipulate you, or find a way to sign on your behalf. Her voice dropped slightly. They already have enough of your signature samples. For a moment, fear tried to take over again. The instinct to run, to confront, to break down. But something else pushed through it. Something colder, more focused. I straightened slowly, letting go of the counter. Then we do not refuse, I said. Lena raised an eyebrow. What? We let them think they are winning, I continued, my voice steadier now. We let them push forward. We let them bring everything out into the open. I felt it click into place as I spoke. And then we take it all back. There was a brief silence. Then slowly Lena smiled. Not wide, not warm, but sharp. I was hoping you would say that. I walked to the table and looked down at the documents again, but this time I was not overwhelmed. I was studying them, mapping them. We need leverage, I said. Proof that cannot be denied. And we need timing. We cannot act too early. I already have most of the proof, Lena replied. Financial records, recorded conversations, evidence of fraud. But it is not enough to destroy them publicly. Not yet. Then we build the rest, I said. We give them exactly what they want. I picked up one of the papers, running my fingers over the signature line. They want me to sign the final document. Fine. I will sign it. Lena watched me closely. You are sure about that? I met her gaze, calm now in a way I had never felt before. Yes, but not the way they expect. She leaned forward slightly. Explain. I allowed myself a small, controlled smile. If they think I am still the same person who blindly trusted them, then they are already 2 steps behind. I tapped the paper once. We just need to make sure that when everything collapses, it happens all at once. Lena let out a quiet breath, almost like relief. One night, she said softly. I nodded. One night. The next morning, I woke up before sunrise, not because I had to, but because my mind refused to slow down. Every sound in the house felt sharper. Every step carried weight. I moved quietly through the kitchen, preparing breakfast the way I always did, measuring coffee, slicing fruit, playing the role they had assigned to me so perfectly that even I almost believed it. Almost. Lena stayed in her room, back in the wheelchair, her body slack again, her eyes distant whenever anyone passed by. If I had not seen the truth myself, I would have believed it too. That was the terrifying part. They had built a lie so convincing it had rewritten reality inside this house. By 8, the performance began. My husband walked in first, checking his phone, barely acknowledging me. His mother followed, her eyes scanning the room like she was inspecting a servant's work. "Did she take her medication?" she asked, nodding toward Lena without even looking at her. I answered softly, keeping my tone obedient. "Yes." It felt almost surreal how easily the lie slipped back into place. But now I was aware of every detail. The way he avoided eye contact when finances came up. The way she lingered near documents, always controlling what I saw and what I did not. I noticed everything. Later that afternoon, the first move came. He approached me with that familiar calm smile, the one I used to trust without question. "We just need to finalize a few things," he said, placing a folder in front of me. "It is routine, just cleaning up some ownership structures." My fingers brushed the edge of the paper, and for a split second, anger surged through me. But I swallowed it. I nodded. I smiled. "Of course," I said. Inside, I could hear Lena's voice echoing. "Let them think they are winning." I took the pen. I read just enough to confirm what I already knew. Asset consolidation. Transfer authority. It was all there, hidden behind clean language and legal phrasing. I signed. Slowly. Deliberately. My name flowing across the page exactly the way they expected. He exhaled in relief, almost imperceptible, but I caught it. That tiny release told me everything. He thought it was done. He thought I had just handed him everything. That night, Lena did not speak until the house fell silent. When she finally stepped out of the room, she moved faster this time, sharper, more focused. "They are pushing faster than expected," she whispered. "That document was the trigger." I nodded. "Then we do not wait," I said. "We finish this." The next 2 days blurred into a quiet storm. On the surface, nothing changed. I cooked. I cleaned. I nodded when spoken to. But behind that mask, everything was moving. Lena contacted her lawyer through a secure line she had hidden months ago. I gathered every piece of financial access I still had, every password, every record. We cross-checked timelines, matched signatures, built the chain of evidence so tight it could not be broken. Every lie they had told, every illegal move they had made, it all connected. Then came the invitation. A family dinner. Formal. Celebratory. His mother announced it with that same smug tone she used whenever she believed she had secured control. "We have good news to share," she said, glancing at my husband with satisfaction. "It is time the family recognizes the new structure." I felt my chest tighten, but not with fear. With anticipation. This was it. The night they would declare victory. The night we would take everything back. The house was filled with people by evening. Extended family. Close friends. People who had always believed the version of events they were fed. I stood near the table, watching them laugh, watching them praise him, watching them treat me like I was already invisible. My husband raised his glass, calling for attention. "Tonight marks a new chapter," he said. "A stronger foundation for all of us." His words were smooth, practiced, empty. I glanced at Lena. She sat quietly, head lowered, playing her role to perfection. And as part of that, his mother added, stepping forward, "Certain responsibilities have been reassigned. Some people simply are not suited for long-term decision-making." Her eyes flicked toward me, just for a second. Enough to make her point. The room murmured in agreement. I felt the heat rise in my chest again, but this time, I did not fight it. I let it sharpen me. He turned toward me, holding out a document. "We just need one final confirmation," he said. "For transparency." The audacity of it almost made me laugh. One final signature. One final step to erase me. I took the paper. I looked at it. Then I looked up at him. And for the first time, I did not hide anything in my expression. "Are you sure about this?" I asked quietly. He frowned slightly, confused. "Of course." That was when Lena moved. Not slowly. Not weakly. She stood. Fully. Calmly. The chair behind her rolled back with a soft scrape that cut through the room like a blade. Every head turned. Every voice stopped. She took one step forward, then another, her posture straight, her gaze steady. "I think we are done pretending," she said. Silence fell, heavy and absolute. His mother's face drained of color. My husband's hand froze mid-motion. For a moment, no one spoke. No one moved. And then I placed the document back on the table, untouched, and smiled just enough for them to understand. Everything was about to collapse. The silence did not break all at once. It cracked. Slowly. Unevenly. Like something fragile collapsing under pressure it could no longer hold. My husband was the first to react, his voice sharp, defensive, almost panicked. "What is this supposed to mean?" he demanded. Stepping toward Lena, as if proximity alone could force her back into the role he had built for her. But she did not flinch. She did not hesitate. She kept walking, each step measured, deliberate, until she stood at the center of the room where everyone could see her clearly, undeniably standing. "You really should have checked the cameras more carefully," she said, her tone calm, almost conversational. "You disabled the ones in the hallway during your private discussions, remember?" She reached into her pocket and placed a small device on the table. A simple click, and the room filled with his voice. Clear, confident, cruel. "Once she signs the final transfer, it is done. The house, the accounts. Everything consolidates under my control. She will not even realize until it is too late." A ripple moved through the crowd. Confusion first, then disbelief, then something darker. My husband lunged forward, trying to grab the device, but Lena was faster. She pulled it back, her eyes locking onto his with a calm that felt almost surgical. "Do not," she said quietly. "You have already said enough." His mother stepped in then, her composure cracking into something frantic. "This is ridiculous," she snapped, her voice rising. "You are sick. You are confused. You have always been unstable." She turned to the guests, forcing a strained smile. "Please ignore this. She does not understand what she is saying." "Actually," I said, finally stepping forward, my voice cutting clean through hers, "she understands perfectly." Every eye turned to me. For months, I had been background noise. Invisible. Manageable. Now, I felt every gaze settle on me with a weight that no longer intimidated me. It fueled me. I walked to the table and placed a second folder beside Lena's device. Thicker. Organized. Precise. "We documented everything," I continued. "Every transfer. Every forged authorization. Every falsified medical report used to declare her unfit." My husband's face shifted, the confidence draining out of it in real time. "You are overreacting," he said quickly, his tone softening as he tried to regain control. "This is all a misunderstanding. We were just trying to protect the family." "Protect?" Lena let out a quiet laugh, sharp and humorless. "You isolated me, controlled my finances, and planned to erase her legal rights entirely. That is not protection. That is fraud." The word hung in the air, heavy and undeniable. I watched it land on every face in the room, watched the shift from curiosity to alarm. That was the moment they realized this was not a private family disagreement. This was something that could not be hidden. The door opened behind us. No one had heard the knock. Two people stepped inside. A man in a tailored suit, calm, composed, carrying a briefcase. Behind him, another figure, equally controlled, scanning the room with quiet authority. My husband froze. His mother's hand gripped the back of a chair so tightly her knuckles turned white. "My apologies for the interruption," the man said, his voice steady, professional. "I believe we are expected." Lena nodded once. "Right on time." The room shifted again. This time, the tension sharpened into something colder. The man stepped forward, placing his briefcase on the table and opening it with a soft click that echoed louder than it should have. He pulled out documents, neatly organized, and set them beside ours. "We represent both parties in this matter," he said. "And based on the evidence collected, there is sufficient cause to initiate immediate legal action regarding financial fraud, coercion, and unlawful asset transfer." My husband shook his head, stepping back as if distance could undo what was happening. "No," he said under his breath. "No, this is not real." "It is very real," I replied, my voice steady, almost detached now. "And it is happening exactly the way you planned it. Just not for you." His mother tried one last time, her voice breaking as she reached for me. "You do not have to do this," she said, desperation replacing arrogance. "We can fix this. We can talk." I looked at her hand, then at her face. The same face that had watched me shrink day by day and said nothing. The same voice that had called me replaceable. I stepped back, just enough to make the distance clear. "You already did enough talking," I said quietly. The man in the suit continued, unfazed. "Effective immediately. All accounts associated with the disputed assets will be frozen pending investigation. Any attempt to move funds will be considered obstruction." He paused, then added, "Additionally, formal complaints have been filed regarding the falsification of medical records. That carries significant legal consequences." The room erupted then, voices overlapping. Questions. Accusations. Panic rising in layers. My husband tried to speak, to regain control, but no one was listening to him anymore. His authority had collapsed the moment the truth entered the room. And in the middle of it all, Lena and I stood still. Watching. Waiting. Because this was not chaos. This was the collapse we built. And it was only just beginning. The noise did not fade quickly. It dragged on, sharp and chaotic, like a storm that refused to pass. Voices rose, collided, broke apart. Accusations flew in every direction, but none of them mattered anymore. The structure that had held their power together was already gone. I could see it in the way my husband stood there, his shoulders tense, his eyes darting, searching for control that no longer existed. He opened his mouth more than once, trying to speak, trying to explain. But every word died before it reached anyone who still cared to listen. I stepped back, giving the room space to unravel without me. For the first time in months, I was not reacting. I was not defending. I was not trying to be understood. I was simply watching the consequences take shape. Lena stood beside me, calm, steady, her presence no longer hidden behind weakness. There was something almost quiet about the way we stood there, like the center of a storm that had finally reached its peak. The man in the suit continued speaking, his voice cutting through the chaos with clinical precision, outlining next steps, legal procedures, consequences that could not be negotiated away. Words like investigation, liability, and criminal exposure settled over the room like a weight no one could lift. My husband's face lost all color. His mother's earlier confidence had dissolved completely, replaced by something raw and desperate. She tried to reach out again, not with authority this time, but with fear. "This is too much," she said, her voice trembling. "You are destroying everything." I met her eyes, steady, unshaken. "No, irapli quietly. You did that." The truth did not need to be louder than that. It did not need to be dramatic. It only needed to exist. And now it did. Within minutes, the room began to empty. Guests who had arrived expecting celebration left in silence, avoiding eye contact, carrying whispers with them like something contagious. The illusion of a perfect family, of control, of superiority, collapsed piece by piece as they walked out the door. What remained was not power. It was exposure. By the time the last voice faded, the house felt different. Not lighter. Not yet. But clearer. Like something toxic had finally been named. In the days that followed, everything moved exactly as it should. Accounts were frozen. Documents were reviewed. Every false step they had taken surfaced, one after another, until there was nothing left to hide behind. My husband lost access first. Then control. Then any illusion that he could recover what he had tried to take. His mother's influence disappeared just as quickly. Her authority meaningless once the truth stripped it bare. As for me, I did not celebrate. Not loudly. Not publicly. I simply stayed where I belonged. In a house that had always been mine, even when they tried to convince me otherwise. Lena reclaimed what was hers as well, not with anger, but with certainty. They had called me a burden, a caretaker, a temporary presence in a life they believed they owned. But in the end, they misunderstood one thing that cost them everything. I was never powerless. I was just waiting for the moment when the truth would be enough. So tell me this, if you were standing where I stood, watching it all collapse in front of you, would you have stopped it or let it fall exactly the way it was meant to? In the end, what destroyed them was not bad luck or betrayal. It was their own dishonesty. Lies have a way of stacking up quietly, layer by layer, until one day they collapse under their own weight. They thought manipulation was power. They thought control was permanent. But truth does not disappear just because it is buried. It waits. And when it surfaces, it takes everything with it. If there is one lesson I learned, it is this: never build your life on deception. Because the higher you climb on lies, the harder you fall when they break. If this story made you think, or if you have ever faced something similar, let me know in the comments. Would you have done the same? And if you want more stories like this, do not forget to like the video and subscribe. Your support helps bring more real, powerful stories to light.